Jitendra, so David said he'll try to join, so let's wait some time and then
Okay,
begin.
sure.
Okay. Hi,
Hi,
David.
David.
Guys,
Thanks for coming.
hello.
Is it over to you?
Yeah. So Jitendra, so up to you now. So about the translations, Jitendra.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So let me see. Did you? So what's the agenda of this meeting? Is it the same thing what we discussed a couple of days back about translation not recommended approach, or this is something different?
No, it's it is about this translation issue.
Okay, all right. All right. Typically, in proxy or any gateway, the way you do it is at least for content program and other program, what we typically do, and in general, people follow these standard practices. That translation and all, you don't do it in gateway. So there are other ways or other software for that purpose. For instance, typical transformation and all, if you keep it in mind, enterprise service bus, those kind of solution make more sense. What I'm saying here is, let's say you have multiple versions on the backend, V1, V2, V3. Apigee, basically, typically when you have V1 in production and some more enhancement or feature comes in, you start working on new version V2, and you will find that at some time you have to give your customers some time to keep using V1 and then migrate to V2. So at any given time, your V1, V2 both will be active, and then you will decommission V1 or make it obsolete after some time once V2 gets stabilized. So Apigee typically support those kind of things where at a given time everything is available, V1, V2, V3 for that matter, and it's a customer who make way it call goes to the backend appropriate V1, V2, V3. So if what you are asking, just example purpose, let's talk about that scenario. What you are asking, you or your team is asking is V1 on the Apigee side will remain same, and V1, V2, V3 on the target side will keep changing, because obviously backend API goes through some improvement, enhancement, and that will change. So what every time you come up with new version, we have to change the proxy, and I don't think that's a good idea. Typically, you give in Apigee proxy endpoint, you give version number also. So accordingly, it will go to the backend to appropriate version. For instance, in Apigee proxy endpoint, if you mention some URL v1 / something, then same thing will go to the backend. That way, it's pretty much open. We don't restrict that for v1, v2, or v3, and that should be how we should handle it, so that it's open. If client calls v1, it will go to v1 on the backend. If customer or the client call v2, it will go to the v2 on the backend. So we should not do this kind of translation. That's what I call it. If you call v1 on the backend side, it should go to v2 or v3 or v4 or v5. That's, I don't think, is the right way.
Okay, Jitendra. So, okay, just out of curiosity, so why do we even have V1, V2 in Apigee? Why not, make it as a base URL, part of the base URL, and just
Yeah, no, in fact, Apigee, that's what I'm saying, right? Apigee will not have any version specific restriction. It's open. It's customer here. He has to pass V1, V2, V3 after the base path. That way, Apigee is pretty much open. You can Apigee as a pass through. You can pass endpoint you can pass for V1, V2, V3, and same endpoint will be passed it to the backend. What we are doing right now, you will always call Apigee with V1, but in Apigee proxy, I have to see whether if request has V1, then change the target backend to V2 or V3 or V4. That's what I'm against. Am I making sense to you?
Yes, Jitendra, I understand, but
so whatever you have said, extending whatever you said, that Apigee proxy will be pretty much open. All it will have is base path. It will not have V1, V2, V3. That's pretty much open. So client can use Apigee proxy base path and then add additional suffix V1 and a resource and then call that particular endpoint. So what Apigee will do, Apigee will take whatever is coming after the base path and just forward it to the backend.
okay. So what I'm asking is it possible to have V1 or V2, whatever, in the base pack? Is that possible?
Typically, we don't do that, but if there is a reason for doing it, I would like to know, means why you want to keep V1 or V2 in the base path.
So okay, this is our case. So the backend APIs get updated not frequently, but occasionally, and the client, the app being the client, we don't want to update any changes in the app. So the app will just keep hitting the same URL, and from Apigee, so whichever version is the active version, Apigee should be able to redirect to the current active version, either V1 or V2 or whatever it is.
So that's it depends on how frequently your version is changing. If your backend version is changing very frequently, I don't agree with that. Otherwise, I have to keep working every 2-3 months, keep changing your target endpoint, and basically you are passing your work to Apigee folks. Let's say example purpose, if your version is changing every 3 months, you have to come back to me telling, hey Jit, now it's V3. So I have to go to proxy, change it to V3. And then again V4, V5, V6. It will keep happening. Typically what we do in content program or take any big program, they put their endpoint in the configuration file. It's not part of the code. Configuration file, and basically they will go for the CI/CD rebuild. So all they do is basically change the configuration file from their end. They change from V1 to V2, and then they go rebuild, it get deployed, and get tested automatically.
Okay.
So if you keep it outside the code, it will be much easier to rebuild, and then eventually you can use continuous improvement, continuous delivery kind of Jenkins kind of tool to build that.
You're talking about the backend.
No, I'm talking about front end. Your client, example purpose, your client is calling V1, right now.
Yeah.
And then your backend version is changing to V2. So client needs to call now V2, not V1.
Yeah.
So in your on the client side, you will have configuration file where you will list out all the proxy endpoints, and those proxy endpoints needs to change from V1 to V2. So all you have to do is change the configuration file and go for the rebuild. And that particular process can use CI/CD pipeline.
Okay. I didn't quite get that. So by configuration file, so you mean we'll have it on a separate, like a server page? And
no, basically, I don't know what's the stack you're using on the client side. What kind of client application is it? J2EE, PHP?
It's a mobile app. Mobile app.
It's a mobile app. And you are using Java stack for that, right? Spring or something?
No, JavaScript. Normal JavaScript.
Oh, JavaScript. Okay, so how do you build that application?
React Native. Yeah. For Android, we'll use Android Studio. So basically, in Android Studio, it will be run to Java. And for iOS, we use Xcode to generate the builds.
I see. So don't you have some kind of, for instance, let me ask you one thing. Now you are doing something in production. The same thing you have to do in non-prod environment. And non-prod environment proxy endpoints are different versus production environment, right? So how do you handle that?
In our app, actually, we have different environments splitted.
I see.
So we have a page that is switching the environments. So as soon as the user tapped on the environment, for an example, prod and stage. So as soon as user taps on stage environment, we'll get the URLs accordingly.
I see. So basically, those URLs are kept it in environment variable, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I see. So basically, you have set of URL for each environment, non-prod as well as prod, right?
Yes. Yes.
I see. So I think you have to add there those URL, whatever you have at the environment level, which is outside the code. That's where you have to handle the dependency of version. What I'm trying to say here is, and naturally you don't have it in your case, but in some cases people made a mistake of having it part of the code, and you definitely don't have that kind of situation. So it's outside, and that's basically as and when user change environment, it use appropriate endpoints, right?
Yes.
So similarly, you have to add one more level to it, that okay, environment is prod, but now which version, which revision we are talking here, and based on that you should have flexibility to use v1 versus v2. This is just a suggestion. I think you guys know your technical stack, and you know how to do it better, because this is just the beginning. Going forward, I think it's going to again come back if we don't handle it right now.
Okay.
And if you are telling me that your versions are not very frequent, it may be yearly once, then I will say, okay, all right, in that case we can handle it APG level, because yearly once I don't see problem. But if it's going to change frequently, I don't want this proxy keep changing every now and then.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, typically we don't do that. If your version roadmap is yearly, maybe just once or twice maybe, that's fine. But if start happening very frequently, then it's going to be a lot of work on the APG side.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Just a second. David.
Yes.
Yeah. So, how often do we expect backend upgrades? So, based on that, maybe we could come to a conclusion.
No, I wouldn't expect it to happen often in terms that they're going to upgrade things from V1 to V2 or from V2 to V3. What may happen is there's some under the hood changes that will not affect endpoints. They have been working on this version that we are supposed to use right now, V2, for 4 months. And as far as I know, these things are not going to change very often. This is a question that we could ask to the platform team, or you could ask Manik about that, because he is currently the person who is managing that. So
Okay.
I cannot say that it's not. Well, I wouldn't expect it to happen in weeks, but I wouldn't say that it will not happen, for example, once a year.
Okay.
I see. And that was just an example. And there is one more effort which we are doing as API platform team. We don't have CI/CD process right now with us, but we are planning to do that towards this year end or early next year. Once we have CI/CD process, what we can do is we can pass it on to you, and so basically you can take the ownership of the proxy and then change whatever you want, and then use CI/CD to deploy. Because what I'm saying and why I'm against right now, because of the manual efforts. Once it goes CI/CD route, it will reduce. What I mean by CI/CD is we will use something like Jenkins kind of tools, where it will pull the code from the code repository like Bitbucket, and it will basically build and deploy proxy into whichever environment you want. Typically, we do it in production. Non-prod, we don't do it. So for production, we are planning to build CI/CD pipeline towards this year end or early next year. I can give that ownership to you, and there's a machine user which basically you will get access. So Jenkins will use that machine user to connect to Apigee, and it will basically build and deploy that into production. That way you can manage your own build process rather than depending on us.
Okay. So when do we expect that, in a year or?
Towards year end, we are basically projecting, and if it for some reason it did not happen, it may go to early next year. But you will see some kind of a notification from the API platform support team.
Okay.
Yeah, actually the work is growing. A lot of manual work we are doing, right? So that's what we are trying to do. So people, project or customers, they can take ownership of their own proxy and manage it. In case you get into issue or problem, we can always help you troubleshooting, but we want people to manage their own proxy. This is what I mean by managing is minor change and then build process and all. We can use CI/CD pipeline. I think we already know how to do it and all. When time comes, we can always train a couple of guys from your team. That way you can manage it pretty efficiently.
Okay. Okay.
Which I believe is good news, right?
Yeah, this is that's definitely
every time we need an update.
Correct. I think once we are ready and once we start that process, we will keep informing all the customers, including your team, David. So you will be notified when that is ready. It will have little different path. What we are going to do is currently whatever proxy we develop for different team, it's in Apigee's SaaS model, right? So what will happen is that particular proxy we will save in the code repository, and Pearson standard is Bitbucket. So all our proxy will go to Bitbucket. That's where our code, those are nothing but XML files for a given proxy. So the tools like Jenkins or Bamboo, those tools will pull the source from Bitbucket and basically build it, deploy it. Once deployed, it can do some small test to make sure that connectivity is not broken, and it can send a notification to the team saying that, hey, deployed, looking good.
Okay.
Yeah, but please remember that those are basically building and deploying the proxy, not enhancement or development. That if you have any major enhancement or work, probably either you have to do it or you have to tell us and plan it so that we can deliver it to you on time.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so David, action item for you. You are going to talk to the backend folks to know what's the basically roadmap for the different version, how frequently you go for new versions or revision, and let me know if it's too frequent, which I doubt. But I need to know that then based on that, I have to think of something. Or if it's not very frequent, then we will keep doing it, and then once CI/CD is available, I will pass it on to your team. Does that make sense to you?
Perfect sense. Yeah, I just the problem might be that nobody may be able to answer right now because there are lots of changes in the structure and the way things are working in the team. But yeah, I believe that we should ask Manik, who manages the teams, and then I'll get back to you. As you said, I wouldn't expect it to happen very frequently, but let's make sure about it.
Sure. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think. And when are we planning to migrate V2 to production?
Yeah, of course. As I said, well, this could happen next week. I don't know when. I hope that it's not going to happen later than that.
Okay. All right.
Nobody knows. As I said, I explained it to the team, not to you, but yesterday they found 2 serious bugs that they first need to resolve. Then they need to test them in QA, in staging. So it's going to take some time. So that's why we have this delay.
Okay, all right, no issue. I think let me know once team is ready. That way we can just deploy a new version into production, and we are all good then.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for your flexibility from the very beginning.
Oh, no problem. You are always welcome. If you always keep me in a loop, we can always plan it better. That way, no last-minute surprises for either of us.
Oh, believe me, this one was a big surprise for all of us.
Yeah. I know that. Yes. All right. Anything else, David? Ezel?
That's it from my side, Jitendra.
All right. So basically, let's wait for some feedback from David, and let's discuss it further if needed. If versions are not too frequent, I don't mind, and then I'm expecting CI/CD to be in place, and then I will train a couple of your teammates. That way, we can do this more efficiently rather than manually. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Have a nice weekend. See you.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks. Hello, call.